Director Denis Villeneuve tried to portray the depths of Frank Herbert's dense sci-fi novel Dune, which is as expansive as the desert wastes of Arrakis itself. In the sequel, Villeneuve tends to delve deeper into the expansive sci-fi epic written and originally adapted by Frank Herbert. Let's look at a few of the things we could be seeing in the upcoming sequel. Keep watching to find out more. Firstly, the 2-year gap in between. Paul and Jessica would have time to adjust to their new life among the Freemen if the plot were to jump ahead by a few years. It makes sense, and that's exactly what's going to happen. He has better control over his precognitive skills as he progresses towards becoming the Freemen's leader. The director and the cast will possibly try to maintain the book's time frame, given that Part 2 won't be out for another 2 years. Next up, Paul's new name. Part 1 portrayed a tiny desert mouse on Arrakis throughout the movie. This is no insignificant aspect. As Paul fully integrates into Freeman society, he'll eventually alter his name. He chooses to adopt the name Muad'Dib, the desert mouse, while keeping his first name. The mouse's sage and durable character on the planet Arrakis give it an appropriate designation for the Freeman Messiah. Yet, it may seem like an unusual option for the brooding protagonist. More on how it runs in the family. Dave Bautista has already been introduced to audiences as Glossu, Beast, and Rabban, the Baron's menacing nephew. Thade Rotha Harkonnen, however, is the Baron's other nephew who is waiting patiently behind the scenes. The Baron intends to install his younger nephew as the next ruler of Arrakis in an effort to make him more popular with the populace than the authoritarian Rabban. Paul's final foe in a conflict that will decide the fate of the universe will eventually be Faye. Coming up, Paul gets a sister. Paul also anticipated that Jessica, his mother, would become pregnant with a sibling of his, a major figure in the later storyline. In the novel, Aaliyah inherited his mother's abilities after she drank the water of life. With the ability to comprehend things and speak like an adult at the age of 2, she's definitely one of the most fascinating figures in the Dune universe. Following, Paul's clairvoyance gets stronger. Paul can see the future since he's the Kwisatz Haderach, and we saw many examples of this in Part 1. After being exposed to the spice on Arrakis, his visions only become more potent, but he aspires to make them even more powerful. He takes the water of life to strengthen his abilities after failing to predict an attempt on his mother's life. But because the drug is actually harmful to men, he ultimately falls into a coma for a number of weeks before regaining consciousness and realizing his full potential. Up next, more scenes of the Emperor. Emperor Shaddam IV attempted to maintain his secrecy, despite lending the Baron his Sardaukar soldiers for his invasion of Arrakis. But in the book, he and the Baron ultimately dispatched fleets to the area surrounding Arrakis in an effort to defeat the Freemen uprising. The Freemen, the Harkonnens, and the Emperor's soldiers will surely engage in a titanic battle, like in The Lord of the Rings, as a result of the entire conflict. Moving on, will Paul replace Emperor Shaddam? After defeating the Harkonnens and speaking with Emperor Shaddam IV, in Herbert's book, Paul persuades him to abdicate his kingdom in exchange for Princess Irulan's hand in marriage. He suggests in Part 1 that doing so can remove Shaddam's sway over the cosmos and avoid war among the races. Finally, Paul will lose the following of the Freemen. In a very depressing twist, the novel concludes with Paul losing power over the Freemen despite taking over the Imperium. And so, exactly as he predicted in his visions, his legions wage a holy war across the cosmos, killing millions of people in his name. It's still unknown how Villeneuve will handle this story's dismal ending. However, Part 2 may end up being the trilogy's Empire Strikes Back, given the director's ambitions to adapt the Messiah sequel novel. In other news, things that make no sense about the movie. Starting off with, the Emperor's missing. Some of the story gaps in Villeneuve's adaptation are truly as huge as sandworms. One of the most significant characters, Padishah, Emperor Shaddam IV of House Corrino, is entirely absent from the film. The majority of the bloodshed in Herbert's work is motivated by his pettiness and jealousy over the Duke, House Atreides, and its army, and he isn't even shown on screen. In David Lynch's 1984 version of Herbert's book, the Emperor appears as a threat frequently throughout the narrative. Villeneuve's version hardly mentions the Emperor in passing between the Reverend Mother and Baron Harkonnen, making it difficult for all of us to realize how important of a big bad he really is. The Emperor's whereabouts will likely be addressed in Dune Part 2, but without the foundation established in Part 1, fans probably won't be as terrified of his strength and superiority by that point. Up next, why aren't we shown the entire power of the Atreides army in Dune? Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho are credited for training the army of House Atreides, whose soldiers match the Sardaukar army of the Emperor in lethality and effectiveness. However, they're barely mentioned even though they are some of the biggest players in the book, and don't seem to put up much of a fight against the Sardaukar Vinegar, who can easily defeat Arrakeen. Because House Atreides' army threatens him, and he believes they'll help the Duke seize control of the Landsraad, the Emperor in Herbert's novel gives House Harkonnen his Sardaukar reinforcements to retake Arrakis. Instead of emphasizing what a wonderful swordmaster Idaho is, the movie should have done a better job of highlighting the elite nature of the army. Moving on to the Harkonnens and their Hunter-Seeker. A spy left behind by House Harkonnen hires a Hunter-Seeker to assassinate Paul Atreides in his chambers in an attempt to take his life. This little object emerges from a wall and flies through the air in an attempt to find him and stab him with a poisonous needle, but he manages to evade it by hiding behind a hologram. The camera is attached to the Hunter-Seeker's tip, and it constantly sends a video feedback to the Harkonnen operator. Why wasn't Paul visible to him? Although the device's compressed suspender field is mentioned in Herbert's book as a sign of its poor vision, this is never acknowledged in the film. We can't seem to understand why the Harkonnens would try something like that by using a device that can be evaded that easily. They're one of the wealthiest houses in the entire series, and also have control over some of the best spice extracting technology, so getting someone killed shouldn't be that difficult for them. Coming up, did you pay attention to the still suits? Wearing a still suit built by Freeman, which recycles the wearer's sweat and waste into potable water to survive in the desert, is one of Arrakis' most essential aspects of life. They're depicted in the film as being various tones of dark gray, with some Freemen choosing to drape theirs in lighter material. Our question is, why would someone in the middle of the desert want to be so noticeable? From a more logical standpoint, it would make more sense for them to be a color like their environment, but we kinda understand that the dark gray hue makes the actors stand out on screen more dramatically. Following that, a sci-fi movie without computers. In spite of Dune's far-off future setting, there's very little mention of any computers. Although the movie doesn't explicitly state it, some robots and enormous spacecraft can bend space and time and are controlled by humans who consume spices. In Herbert's novel, humanity long ago created supercomputers that tried to destroy them. As a result, after suppressing the rise of artificial intelligence, humanity banned the creation of all types of supercomputers. Even a brief explanation of this would have helped viewers comprehend why computers aren't present and why spice is so important in their absence. More on Paul's reaction to his father's death. Duke Leto I and his son Paul share some extremely moving scenes that help to forge a strong father-son bond. When House Harkonnen assassinates Leto, Paul appears unconcerned. As a result, Lady Jessica experiences a dangerous seizure, but Paul looks distant and uncaring. Although he may be in complete shock, it still seems like he would react more viscerally to the loss of such a significant person in his life. Most of Herbert's acts in his book are motivated by his desire for vengeance following his father's death, so possibly Part 2 will reveal more intense emotions around the Duke's passing. Next, the mysterious Bene Gesserit. From the time they arrive at House Atreides in the dark of night, the Bene Gesserit have been shrouded in mystery, leading readers to wonder what role they play in the expansion of the known world, the significance of Lady Jessica's relationship to them, and the significance of Paul Atreides. The Bene Gesserit are a group of people committed to advancing human awareness and creating a specific messianic figure who will guide the universe toward unprecedented growth. They can serve as a form of collective memory for humanity because they have the power to transfer consciousness, with entities like the Reverend Mother having the memory of numerous lifetimes. It's difficult for viewers to really appreciate how terrifying the Reverend Mother is, or what her meddling means without knowing any of this, but it's likely that their secrets are being held back for Dune Part 2. Finally, Chad Paul pretends as if he doesn't see Chani in his dreams 24/7. In the film, Paul experiences numerous visions of a mystical Freeman woman, sometimes a bit too often, which are supposed to represent her significance in his destiny. After confronting Stilgar, he finally faces Chani and doesn't even give her a second glance. It makes sense that Paul should feel more when he finally saw the woman who's been haunting his dreams, and who he's supposed to be romantically linked with, but the Atreides heir could not be more emotionless. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. What are the things you're most looking forward to seeing in the Dune sequel, and is Part 2 going to be better than the first? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.